for the late start, but we did have a work session prior to the meeting, so it kind of ran a little long. If everyone will stand, we'll do our pledge of allegiance to the flag, and if you will, remain standing. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we give thanks, Lord, for this time to come together, Lord. We ask you, Lord, that any decision we make in this meeting tonight, that we seek your guidance, no matter how small an issue it may be. We ask you, Lord, this time we lift up the Jones family, Lord, and be with them during their time of sorrow and death. And we ask you, Lord, just to lay a special blessing on their family. We ask, Lord, to be with Michelle Howe during her surgery. We lift her up. We ask you, Lord, to give the doctors wisdom, guidance, and control, and take care of the situation. And we ask you, Lord, to be with their family. We ask, Lord, to forgive us where we fail you. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, you see the agenda there in front of you. I will entertain a motion to approve it.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Ms. Carter,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Ayler. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is the consent agenda. The only thing in the consent agenda is actually our June 8th meeting, so I'll entertain a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. King,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Atkins. Of course, there's no discussion on that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, at this time we will, on our agenda is the Director of Schools contract. If you remember, we did the evaluation about 3 months ago. Very positive evaluation, very good test scores, very good score. But anyway, and that's what our meeting was before here. We had a work session to discuss Dr. Smith's contract. So at this time, I'll open the floor up for any motions.
I make a motion, they extend their contract through June the 30th of 2027, which is good 4 years, and increase their salary to $130,000 a year.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, the motion was made by Mr. King to extend her contract through June the 30th of 2027 and to increase it to $130,000. And it was seconded by Reverend Chris. Any discussion? Any questions? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are very glad to have you for another 4 years.
Thank you. There's been some rough days, but at the end, I look back and when I make these PowerPoints, it's when it really hits home to see the things that we've done and see where we were and where we are now. Because when you're in the daily grind, it can get lost pretty quick. But we've done a lot of great things, and I think we're headed in some directions that are good for kids. It's going to give some kids some futures that maybe they didn't see before, and that's what it's about. So I can promise you without a shadow of a doubt, we could not do it without the support of this board. And I would put you against anybody in this nation, not just the state. Y'all really care about kids, you do your research, you're actively involved, and it is completely impossible without you. I appreciate everything you do.
We appreciate your leadership and the direction that we're heading, so thank you very much. At this time, we've got our policy updates, and there's quite a few of them, so at this time, I'll turn it over to Dr. Smith.
Okay, if you will, it may be easier to follow along in the books because these get pretty lengthy on the PowerPoints. There are about 18 policies tonight, so it's going to take a few minutes, but I'll tell you where all of this, the majority of this comes out of is the legislation from the last legislative session. Obviously, it ended in April. It takes the lawyers and TSBA a little while to get the model policies written and then out, and then us to review them and get them to you. So we have 2 tonight that are on first readings, and the first one is on attendance. And if you will get through the black pieces there, the strikeouts, and go to page, at the bottom right, you'll see page 6 of 10. the middle of page 6 through 10. Get it on the screen here. Right in there, lines 38 through lines 3. These are some of the things that make it different from model policy. And we've done this to help the schools because there's questions every year about what is a tardy, what is an unexcused absence, and how many unexcused or how many minutes equal a day. So we've added these two in there, and we actually followed some legal advice on these. Any student who has passed the compulsory attendance school age may be dropped from attendance roll after 3 consecutive unexcused absences. We have kids that just don't come back, and they have to stay on our roll. This gives us a reason to drop them and the number of days to do that with. The second one is always an issue when it comes to perfect attendance. And this says an accumulation of 4 other unexcused attendance events during the school day will equal 1 unexcused day for truancy record purposes. So that is more of an attendance piece for Jeff when he starts to look at the tiers and who to report to court. Everything else in there is the same. Make sure, no, I'm wrong. Go to page 8. Non-school sponsored regular activity. Okay, this one and the next one, release time course, are new additions out of legislation. What the non-school sponsored extracurricular activity says is that a student has up to 10 days that they may participate in a non-school sponsored extracurricular activity. This has to be approved by the principal 7 days prior to the absence, and you have to have the reasons and things like that. So if someone wants to be out for extracurricular activities that are not school sponsored, they now have that right. That really hurts our instructional time. This was not a very school-friendly piece of legislation. And the next one is release time course. A principal may, it does not say they have to, but it is required for us to have this in policy. Principal may excuse a student to attend a course in a religious moral instruction for up to 1 class period per day, but that time cannot be during a state or federal accountability course, such as an EOC. And everything else in that policy was what we already had. Those are the 3 additions to this policy. This is not model policy because we did add those things about what constitutes unexcused, how many unexcused it takes to be equal to a truancy day. That makes it not model policy. The other 2 pieces of it are, but since it's not, we have to go as a first reading. The second one is the cell phone policy. And thank goodness it's not the whole cell phone policy. If you look on the second page, it's just the last sentence. We were advised by Attorney Owen that this needed to be removed. Principals have the option to conduct random searches for possession of cell phones. That has to come out of policy.
Come back one, the policy, I got one question.
Okay.
On page number 9 out of 10, it says driver's license revocation. Is that something that we notify the state or how, when that
We do.
happens? Okay.
They've done that, that's been in there for a
I just didn't know we did that.
really long time.
Just curious. All right.
Now, what the state does with it is out of our control.
All right, thank you.
So those are the only 2 we have for first readings.
So we can't do searches, I mean, I see that, there's no alternative, there's no recommendation by Ms. Owen.
No, and I actually researched about 6 other, what's up there is model policy except for the grades, but those 2 other paragraphs are pretty much every district's policy. Very broad.
That's a first reading as well.
Yes. That's all we do. You want to take this? And then do that.
For the first reading, we'll vote on it.
into the model policies. Alright. Code of ethics. This is, as it applies to the board, is on page 2, point of contact. The board chair shall serve as the point of contact for the Tennessee Ethics Commission. We're to provide this contact information within 30 days. That's a legislative piece they added. The next one, school board meetings. Now it requires you to show exactly when it is, the second Thursday of each month, unless otherwise approved. It changes electronic attendance. That was in there, and basically what they've done is they've split that whole paragraph. So if you look on the second page, it breaks it down into work-related absences, sickness, inclement weather. It changes the family emergency, and it adds military service. So that it kind of adds to the options you have to participate virtually in a board meeting. Any questions on that one? Okay. The next one is notification of meetings. That may be in there twice. It is, that's in there. Skip through that next one, it's in there twice, it's duplicate. And then we're on notification of meetings. This is a piece of legislation that I believe now applies to all governmental boards and commissions. Notice of all meetings with actionable items on the agenda, with the exception of teacher disciplinary hearings, shall include information on how community members can participate in the public comment portion. You will notice on your agenda, we now have a public comment portion on the bottom. That will be there on all of them as well. County Commission has to do this now too. We've always done this, we just haven't had it specifically on the agenda. And you're gonna see this again in the next policy, which is appeals to appearances for the board. This is one we spent a lot of time on last winter, and now they come out with another model policy. So if you look on the second page of that, it is a brand new, recommendation from TSBA, but it says a lot of the same thing. It just makes sure you have that public comment period in there.
Is it in there where, how much time they can speak?
It's on that page, yes. We kept it all the same, because we did have a lot of this in there. The 3 minutes, all that. But we had to add public comment period. That piece of legislation affected 2 different policies. Alright, emergency preparedness plan. That one stays exactly the same, except it adds 3 new annual drills. And that's coming out of the safety resolution that the governor made. We now have to have an armed retriever drill with law enforcement, an incident command drill, and emergency bus drill. Okay, the next one is security. This is one you've probably heard a lot about, it's the locked exterior doors. This is also out of legislation from the governor's public chapter 936. All exterior doors have to be locked at all times. And if they are not, law enforcement has a right to come by at any time. I can tell you that there were 2 troopers on our one of our campuses on July the 2nd. We didn't even have kids there, and they were knocking on doors wanting to know why a door was open. Now, we were laying floor, so the glue was there, and there were no kids on campus, but when they're showing up on July 2nd, they're serious about this. The consequences are, if they catch you the first time, if you don't have an SRO, at your expense, you have to provide one. Past that, they will take a portion of that school's funds, starting at 2%, then 4, 6, 8, and 10. So we have something in place, I'll show you in a few minutes, that we have put out to staff to help make sure that we're adhering to this policy. But all this policy adds is that if outside of regular hours, for example, a ball game, If a door has to be unlocked, an employee, not just somebody, has to be supervising that door. Otherwise, it's supposed to be locked too. You can imagine what a locked door at a ball game would be like. So at every ball game, we'll have to have an employee manning that door. The next one is summer school. This one, keeps a lot of the same things that was in it, but it adds the attendance requirement, specifically for third and fourth graders, and it adds the third grade promotional retention law and makeup days. Those students who are required to attend summer school for the third grade promotion have to maintain a 90% attendance rate. If they don't get credit for it. What we had to do this year was get through summer school, then that first or second week of July, we offered 4 days that kids who missed more than 90% could come and make up those days. So we paid somebody to come in for another 4 days to work with kids to get summer school credit. But that is actually law that they have to have that 90% rate if they're on the retention piece. The next one is extracurricular activities. This one has been a big change that's created a lot of legal questions. What it says is that all students under the age of 18 shall present a signed, dated statement from their parent or guardian before joining any club or organization or participating in activities of clubs and organizations. Basically, what they call this is an opt-in, whereas before we had some things that were opt-out. If you did not want to go to the 4-H field trip, you had to sign saying you didn't want to go. Now that you have to opt in. So we gotten some legal guidance on things to put in handbooks. Still have some questions, but we're trying to make it as easy as we can on parents and teachers. But a lot of this has to be opt-in now. It's going to require a lot more paperwork. The good thing is most of our schools were already requiring permission for most things, so a lot of it was covered, but there's some things that we weren't covering that we're going to have to start. So it's called the opt-in policy. Any questions on that one? The next one is library materials. Basically what this one does, maybe TSBA got to legislators. Before, with this law, if someone wanted to appeal a book in a library, it went to you, the board. They have changed this, and now it comes to me, and then it comes to you. So they've added a step in there, so all this policy do. All right, the next one's the Family Medical Leave Act. I can tell you that we still have a lot of questions. Attorney Owen still has a lot of questions, and we don't have answers. This one changes things dramatically. This specific part of the law is written for educators, and it's going to put districts in a very, very difficult situation. If you will look on page 2 of this is the main change in this one. Paid parental leave under state law now gives an additional 6 work weeks of paid leave to eligible employees after a birth, stillbirth, or adoption. And this also applies to the father. So both parents, if they're employees, can get an additional 6 weeks of paid leave. Supposedly the state is going to reimburse us, but we don't know how, when, we cannot get answers. We have heard absolutely nothing from the Department of Education. These people have to have been employed with us for 12 consecutive months, and they have to be required to hold a license for their position. So teachers' assistants would not be eligible for this. It has to require a certified position with a license.
Question. So they could get 6 weeks of paid leave even if they didn't have sick time or vacation time.
in addition to their FMLA.
So it's actually 12 weeks total.
It's actually could be 16.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
in Tennessee.
16 total.
which is pretty much a semester.
Right. The other thing is it does not have to be taken consecutively.
Oh, my goodness.
So they could basically take off Mondays and Fridays
Oh, my
for the whole
goodness.
year.
Oh, my goodness.
If you think that doesn't put schools in a bind, I don't know that this will change, but I know that we need to really have some conversations with legislators on this one. And I'm pretty sure that is only applicable to government employees, government considered employees. But like I said, we still have a lot of questions. We sent these to Attorney Owen. Some she were able to answer, some she was not. We'll continue to keep you updated on that one, but that was, has to go in policy.
So are we doing second reading on that one since we don't have all the answers?
And it's model policy.
It's more
It's more-
policy, so yeah, it can be changed later.
A lot of our questions are operational. How do we get reimbursed? When? Are there any parameters? Those types of things. The next one is zero tolerance. What they've done on this is added number 5. A threat of mass violence on school property that is transmitted by an electronic device. Snapchat, social media, those types of things. We can consider that zero tolerance, and I can tell you after the last 2 days, we need to. Okay. I don't know how I got cell phones in there twice, but it's in there again, so we gotta keep going for corporal punishment. This is one I really want your feedback on. I felt like it was important to put it out there the way the model policy reads, because some principals, even though when I ask the question, we only have 2 that even would consider using it. Really just, we have 1. So I feel like I need to put it out there, but at the same time, I want to caution us on what is in here and what the requirements are, because it has changed. If you look on page 2 of that, where it says, number 7, part D. In addition to all the other steps you have to take prior to administering corporal punishment, now it has part D, which says you have to consider the need to conduct an evaluation to determine whether the student has a disability per federal law. That is an extremely lengthy process, which basically in my mind tells me you can't do it until you go through this. So that is a concern. That's a really big concern of mine. And the other part is number 11. It says the nature of the punishment shall be such that it is in proportion to the gravity of the offense. That's subjective. That's very subjective. We do not have to have a corporal punishment policy. We can vote not to allow corporal punishment. This is the model policy, and I wanted us to see this, but I wanted you to be very mindful of what's in here and what's required. Now, the rest of it talks a lot about record keeping and things like that, and some of it was already in there, such as the documentation the principals have to have.
I feel like that taking corporal punishment completely out of the policy eliminates all that problem.
I think you're right.
I mean, by the time the child's actually punished, he's gonna forget what the offense was. It's gonna be weeks before you even figure it out. It's just simple stuff for us.
If it's that, then it's probably gonna fall under zero tolerance anyway.
And like I said, we only have one school that and we have to report corporal punishment to the state at the end of each year. The last 2 years, we've only turned in one school. So it is is not a common practice.
I actually thought we had stopped doing it several years back.
I think we kind of agreed to not do it, but to keep the policy for,
Oh, and
just to have it.
just to have it, yeah.
But when they put this kind of legality in there, it changes the.
Can we make this applicable to the parent?
The subjectiveness concerns me.
It opens you up to a lot of liability.
I think that puts you more at risk than ever before.
All right, the next one are student surveys, analysis and evaluations, and this change is actually another part of that opt-in legislation that they made. It affects more than one policy. This one says that, before any survey, analysis, or an evaluation, students under the age of 18 must provide written, informed, voluntary signed consent. So if a school is going to do a survey on what school lunch they like the best, the parent has to sign approval. Alright, the next one, physical examinations and immunizations. On line number 9, screening tests used to be required by the State Department of Education, now it says they are recommended. And on this one, it's not an opt-in, it's an opt-out. It's just as confusing as it can. Parents may excuse their students from participating in health screenings. This is all part of coordinated school health.
So if a parent opts out of the physical exam, and would they still be allowed to play sports? Cause that's part of it.
There's two different things. I think this is talking about the health screenings, where
Okay.
coordinated school health does eyes, vision,
Okay.
weight, those types of things. Sports physicals, the parents actually have to have done.
Oh, okay.
Now, this year, we are doing them at school, but we had to fill out a packet that big.
Okay.
And the last one, this one is not required by law, but I think it would help protect the board itself in terms of what is required when somebody calls and says, I'm going to pull my child out and they need to homeschool. This gives us guidance and regulations that are consistent with the procedures of the State Department of Education. This literally just lists what they require. So it's not a required policy, but it is guidance, and it's something we can say, if you don't do this, you're not considered homeschool, because we have to actually verify if students in our county are homeschooled or not. We did actually just do this one about a year and a half ago, and what we changed was we added the high set instead of just the high school diploma. Now they've changed that, and it says you must have a high school equivalency credential, and they have to agree to testing in grades 5, 7, and 9. So those were legislative changes in the areas of homeschool. It also changes the compulsory attendance law to age 17. That's the policies. It's been a very difficult journey with the legislation that came out of last session, to say the least.
Okay, keep in mind, attendance 6.20 and personal communication devices 6.312 is just first reading, so we will not be voting on those. But the other 15 we will be. I would recommend before we vote on all of them, which we can, I recommend we pull out corporal punishment and vote on this separate. I just think that calls for concerns on the corporal punishment and Smith said, the legality of, having to go through the process.
You said you had one school, do you know how many instances they used it?
I believe it reported 7 or 9, did you see that?
It was less than 10.
It was 7 or 9 the last 2 years each.
If you remember, it came up for discussion a few years ago in our principles. The consensus was to leave it in. It just felt like it had a little bit of teeth in having a policy there, but even though they did not use it. So that's why we left it in there at that time.
We did have a,
Which school was it?
actually, it's Baldwin Middle. We did actually have a pretty lengthy conversation about this in the administrative meeting. All the other principals were fine with removing it.
I agree with what I said, I think it's a good idea.
I'll make a motion to approve all model policies and leaving out corporal punishments right now.
Second.
Okay, the motion is made by Mr. King to approve all 14 policies on the first and second reading, and seconded by Mr. Atkins. Any discussion or questions? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries, so we'll go back to the corporal punishment, and
I make a motion that we remove the corporal punishment policy completely out of our, policy guides.
Second.
the motion is made by Ms. Carter. Is there anything else in there that we can keep us from doing that? Does the policy need to be in there for any other reason? I don't think so.
That's all that's in there from those.
Okay. Okay, the motion is made by Ms. Carter to remove the corporal punishment 6.314 and seconded, I'm sorry, by Mr. King.
Yeah.
And I'm looking that way sometimes, I know sometimes y'all don't hear me down this way. But the motion was made to remove corporal punishment 6.314. Any questions? Is everybody okay with that? Okay. All in favor of removing it, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We got that over pretty quick. Okay. At this time, we have surplus equipment. Is there anything else on the policies? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do the surplus equipment.
We have 2 pieces of surplus equipment that needs to be approved. One is technology. I've provided a summary over there on the left side of that. There's actually I believe 279 pages of this itemized in the drive if you want to go look at those. Transportation, we have not surplused vehicles other than 1 or 2 here and there. Mr. Chris, Mr. Hill, myself, Mr. Joy, several of us went around trying to look at some of these vehicles. Some of them were at the bus garage and they haven't cranked in a long time. Some had some pretty severe needs and were not necessarily roadworthy or safe. So we have gone through the list and looked at each one, and there's a list of several that we need to surplus and send those to auction. Examples are those old blue Tauruses that are 05 models that have been here literally for however many years that is. They're one of them doesn't even function anymore. So they're just taking up room and they're just not roadworthy. Anything that we could keep, we have kept. So those are some transportation pieces that we need to surplus.
I'll entertain a motion to surplus, make a motion to list those on the surplus schedule.
So moved.
Okay, a motion made by Ms. Ayler, seconded by Reverend Chris. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Alright, the next one is, something that the board needs to vote on. As you remember, several years ago, we entered into the Jewel litigation, that Attorney Owen had came and spoke to us about. France Law Group has reached out on their own. This does not involve, Attorney Owens' firm, to see if we were interested in becoming part of the litigation against social media. What this lawsuit is looking at is saying that, and it lists them, I believe it's Snapchat, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. Specifically, for advertising jewel and vaping products. That's all I really know. I put everything I have in the drive on this information. I talked to Attorney Owen. She said she could not provide guidance either way because they weren't part of it. What I do know is what we got from the first settlement that we still haven't seen a penny of probably wasn't gonna be worth, this will have to involve our own attorney fees this time. I don't know that it would balance out. You know, it did last time because this was their firm's litigation and we didn't get charged fees for her. On this one, we would. And by the time the other one, I figure by the time the other one comes actually to us over the course of 4 payments, it might be 30 to 40,000.
I'm sure our employees have put a lot of time into it too, right?
It's takes a lot of paperwork. The packet I got on this is about that big. So all you would be voting on is whether we agree to proceed and see where it goes, or to, not entertain it.
I agree, not to entertain it.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Bottlefoot to not entertain it,
So,
seconded by Mr. Atkins. Any discussion, any questions? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and next is our differential pay plan.
This one is almost identical to what we had last year for the diff pay plan. We are continuing to keep the 16 teacher leaders. They have more specific responsibilities such as doing in-services, being chairman of school improvement plan meetings, things like that. Keeping that as it was, and then also last year we had added the bonuses for teachers then in TCAP and EOC grades for the bonuses of $500 for level 4, $800 for level 5. This year, these teachers have to have that as a composite. We kind of kept it a secret, not really on purpose, but we wanted it to be a pleasant surprise. And I think for the most part, it went over pretty well. So this is the diff pay plan. We are required by law to have a differentiated pay plan.
Okay. And we only have one board member that serves on that, correct? So it does not come as any kind of recommendation from.
so that means you had 27 teachers that receive benefit of that. And what about the front page for those 16?
That's for, we have 16 teacher leaders. We've had at least 10 years, I think. They get $500 a semester
Yes.
they have to do certain out-of-hour activities to get that. We have to have some type of differentiated pay plan. The amount is something we can control.
Any questions? We do have to have a motion to approve that.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion made by Mr. King to approve the consolidated funding for year 2024. Have a second? Seconded by Reverend.
It's differentiated.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at something else. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Differential pay plan 2023. There's a motion made by Mr. King and seconded by Reverend Chris. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for catching that. Next is our consolidated funding for 2024.
Consolidated funding consists of our federal programs funds, which is the programs that Dr. Wooden oversees, as well as our special ed funds. These do things such as provide services for our ESL students, homeless, safety, PE things, extended school day, hard to staff, middle college, and special education. Where the actual, full application is in the drive, I believe it's over 200 pages as well. So everything that we have in it, you can see in the drive, and we will approve the budgets in a few minutes, but this is actual approval of the plan itself.
I make a motion that we approve the consolidated funding for 2024.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Ross. Any questions? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is anything else on that? Next we'll move into our committee reports, and I noticed here that it says committee nominations. Dr. Smith and I did not get a chance to meet because I was really out of pocket last week on our agenda. We just kind of talked about it over the phone. Theoretically, we're supposed to appoint a chairman in September. So it's not on the agenda, so are you all okay with just appointing a chairman next month, in October?
Next month is September.
Gosh.
I've got it on the agenda for September. I do have two meetings over here.
I may want to seriously consider another chairman. Okay. So we have the ones not appointed chairman up there. Let Dr. Smith take those.
These are, ones that we do usually approve in August. School level complaint managers, these are required through the bullying law. We have to have a male and a female from each school, so we have those. Disciplinary hearing authority, we have changed that up a little bit this year and tried to narrow it down to a smaller group. And, typically we bring textbook committee, but as of this moment, and this could change tomorrow, there will not be a textbook adoption this year. So we're not gonna have a textbook committee unless something changes.
I have a question on the school level complaint managers.
Yes,
Hasn't Kim Chris retired?
she has, and I messed that up. It is Trey Tate.
Okay.
Good catch.
I thought I remembered congratulating her.
Okay, this whole thing didn't get done.
I believe that's last year.
Oh, let's go.
It did not.
This is
Okay.
last year's, isn't it? I think it's last year's.
It is Brian Mays and Sandra Cheers. It is Jordan Stack and Joyce Woods. Keith Kavanaugh and Trey Tate. I did get Chris Cranford changed, I don't know what I did. That's it, those are the changes. I can bring those back next month if you wanna do that. Or we can just make those changes.
We could vote on them with the changes made.
Yeah, I think so, because it's possible we may need those before next month. So,
I'll make a motion, we approve them with changes.
okay, motion by Mr. King,
Second.
seconded by Reverend Chris. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
I would ask that, the document in the drive be updated, so if we had questions, we could go back and get the correct one.
What is the minimum of the disciplinary hearing authority before you have a meeting? You have to have how many people?
I believe you only have to have two. I know you do, because that's what another district has, that we've kind of looked at their procedures. They actually just have two out of the central office.
Is that all?
We're good. I made sure it was okay to do it September, because that's what we did last year. I didn't have it on before we did it. Sure.
Okay. Next month, there's gonna be a conflict with, I think Dr. Smith's gonna be somewhere and not be able to attend our meeting in September. So does anybody have any problems with moving the meeting either to the following Tuesday or the previous Tuesday?
What are the dates, Bobby, please?
The 12th or the 19th?
It needs to be the 12th, because county commission will be the 19th.
Okay. Is everybody okay with September the 12th?
Hang on just a second here.
Yeah, I am wrong about that. I'm just so messed up about the chairman.
Our Western District meeting is 14, is that correct?
Yes, that's what it was.
12th of September, I'm good.
And that is in Jackson this year, isn't it?
I think it's in Jackson,
Yes, it is.
What's
So
the-
the fall district meeting is.
It's the 14th.
That's the 21st of September.
It's the 21st. So everybody's okay with that? Okay. Okay, next we'll go into continue with our committee reports, and at this time we'll do our budget committee, and I'll turn that over to Mr. Atkins.
Right, I don't know if y'all are aware, but they've had difficulty trying to find, CDC teachers this year, and they have offered a recruiting, bonus for those teachers of $5,000. And the same, with assistance, they've offered them a $1,500 retention or recruiting bonus, so, they have filled some positions, but I think there's some positions that are still open, so that will continue, but we have to do something to try to serve those students. So, hopefully that will help. The current supplement's $500 a semester, and that will increase to $750 a semester. That's another supplement that they do get currently, each CDC teacher, so. And does the assistants get that second supplement?
They do.
So, so that's a very important part of our school, and it's really disappointing that you can't find teachers, you know, so hopefully that'll help. Hopefully that'll continue to maybe get some teachers that are interested, or bring someone that has a heart for those students. Go to the next slide. You know, our cafeteria managers, they do a good job. They work a lot of hours. Most of them work more than anyone, in the cafeteria, and we feel like that we need to look at their salary. So we're making a recommendation that we increase their salary, and it's not very much. I can't remember the current amount, but it's not very much that they're being increased. But as you can see, 0 to 10 years will be $15 per hour. 11 plus years will be 16.
You don't know what we do currently?
No, I don't.
They're all different.
They are.
It's anywhere from like 1208 to 1421, I think. There's like 4 different levels. And there's no rhyme or reason.
This is one group that we did not.
Yeah, we did not do anything with them.
And we
Okay.
kind of equalized all the other employees.
That was
So
my next question.
these were kind of overlooked, so we want to recommend that. All right, now we're gonna go into some budgets that we need to talk about. The first one is Sub-Fund 10. This budget, is $109,000, and this basically is a federal, all these are federal, but this is to provide, funding or for the director, which is Dr. Wooden, and also, for the clerical position, Mrs. Kraft. They basically do all the paperwork, but this is for all the paperwork that they do for the federal programs. So, that's what this particular budget is. If we go to the next one, this is Sub-Fund 101. This is all the assistants in the schools. And also, if you look down in the middle of the page on other salaries and wages of This will pay our instructional coaches, and we have 3 full-time instructional coaches. If you'll look up a little bit to instructional supplies, they do, fund students, for different things that they need, and some of that is like ink, ink cartridges or outrageous paper and different things like that, so this is another federal budget. I'll go to the next one, it's sub-fund 201, this is, bonus payments, and this is where this was created for the CDC that we discussed earlier, so that's what these funds are for, when we find those teachers, try to supplement those, or pay those bonuses. Those bonuses are not paid up front, they're paid on a, 2 times per year, so they, that way, and it incentivizes the teachers to stay, so, that they will receive that in that year, in a year period. The next, budget is sub-fund 441, and I don't know if I've gotten all this down, sometimes I forget some of these, but it's for $110,000, but it's for well-rounded education, safety and health in schools, and then health and technology. It also provides some money in there for a possibility of a new SRO officer at the alternative school, that we currently do not have one, so that might be something that would be useful, hopefully. If we go to the next one, sub-fund 601, this is assistance, and this is an equalization type budget, and it helps all the Title I funds are based on a percentage basis of the population and the students that you have in that school, and this helps to equalize those other schools that do not get some Title I funding. So some of your schools that do not receive it can receive it through how Dr. Wooden presents in this budget. So it tries to give those funds to all the schools. And if we go to the IDEA Part B, on the next one, special education, this is all the assistants, transition coordinators, and the bus drivers for special education. And you'll see those numbers in the assistants, you'll see it in other salaries and wages for the coordinators, and then you'll see it in the bus drivers down there for 105, that's the heart of this budget. So, the next one, I think it's the last one, is another special education budget for preschool, and it primarily will fund 2 PACE assistants. And you'll see that in their salary and all their other benefits. Is there any questions about any of these budgets, or would you like to discuss anything in any of these budgets? If not, that comes as a recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Any questions? So it does not require a second. It is a motion to give the CDC bonuses to cafeteria managers, increase in their hourly wage, sub-fund sub-fund 10, sub-fund 101, sub-fund 201, sub-fund 441, sub-fund 601, special ed budget, and special ed preschool budget. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, is there anything else, Mr. Atkins, you have?
I don't.
Okay. Well, at this time, we will, I'll turn it over to Dr. Smith for the director.
I was not going to ask her to come tonight because it's only the first full week of school, but since Miss Sane is here with us, I'm going to recognize her. Miss Cassandra Sane is with us tonight, and we are ecstatic to have her on staff and to have her at Whiteville Elementary. She brings energy, she brings a lot of experience, she brings a different experience, she brings high school, so that's a different look, and she's able to be able to know what those kids are getting ready for, and that's a very different perspective, and we're glad she's here. She's done some great things. She had a little scare yesterday with the lightning, but we made it through it, and, we're really, really excited to have her on board, so, thank you. All right. We did have some energy the very first day of, well, it was actually our second day of in-service. We had our district-wide in-service. We had a beginning of year kickoff, and some of you were able to attend the opening. We had, 3 great speakers. We had Mr. Kevin Woods, who is now, pretty much the regional sales executive for Blue Cross Blue Shield and a board member of Memphis Shelby County Schools. Mr. Kevin Vaughn, who is representative of Collierville, and of course Representative Shaw. And the reason we chose those is because they were all graduates of Hardeman County. And we asked them to come back and talk about how the school system played a role in where they are today. And they all did a really, really great job in doing that. It was ironic that a couple of them mentioned Ms. Hodge, Coach Hodge, and that Modern Women of America actually recognized her this year as a special ceremony. Recognition, I guess you just call it. Anyway, she was surprised. It was a good day. We had a lot of great talent, some really great talent, and we had a lot of laughs that afternoon with some games, and had a lot of energy and motivation, trying to do something different and help kick off the year with some energy, and I think it was a really good day. We had a lot of community involvement this year, probably more than I've seen in a while. The chamber was kind of the kickoff to it, and then a lot of other ones jumped on board. We had a lot of civic groups help out with school supply drives. I know the Community Health Center did one, TCAT did one. I believe there was one at the Municipal Center. We did not try to list them because we would have missed somebody. So we just sent out a big thank you to everybody that helped do that. But school supplies were very abundant this year. We also had First Baptist Church Bolivar provided lunch for everybody on the first Monday of in-service, so we appreciated that. Meet the Teachers, I believe we have finally finished all those. Most of those were last week, but every school had a Meet the Teacher night and had some success with those. And as we speak, we are missing it. I guess they did check our board meeting schedule. Right now, they're having the Meet the Teachers at Central High School on the football team, on the football field, and then Middleton is there with them for Meet Tigers. I don't remember Middleton and Bolivar doing that in, I don't know when. We also had a backpack giveaway, I guess you'd call it, for every child. This is through the governor's, First Lady Marie Lee's initiative called Tennessee Serves. She provided backpacks to every student in distressed counties. And unfortunately, we are a distressed county. Fortunately, we benefited from it. They did also release the end of June a new list of distressed counties, and I believe 4 came off, and we are still on there. So we're one of 8 in the state of Tennessee. The only other one around here, I believe, is Lake County. So Lauderdale was, they came off. But we did get backpacks for it. Students were able to do that, and no, they were not clear. Now, for the great news. I want you to focus on those red lines. These are broken down by elementary, middle, and high school, and this is district-wide English language arts scores from last year to this year, where you see that red line. And what that red line represents is below basic. So what you want always to see is that below basic line going down, and that little bitty blue line up there on top getting larger. As you can see in ELA, all of our students, all of our areas, elementary, middle, and high, decrease the number of below basic students. So we move those into the approaching category or higher. Math, you see the same thing. Middle school was stagnant there at the same of 45%, but we had a huge jump in high school math. Science, high school science stayed the same, but the other 2 decreased the number of below basic. And in social studies, we decreased the number of below basic. That means we are growing those students and getting them out of that lowest category. With all of those areas we just looked at, we only had 2 that were the same and 0 that increased. So what this shows is that other than math, middle school, and social science, high school, we're showing increases in improvement in growth, movement in every one of those areas. We usually have pockets of it, either elementary or either high school. I don't remember any time that we've seen it across the board in all 3 areas in every content area. So this is something that just it made me ecstatic, because this right here is, it's not about test scores, but it's about growth. We hope to have our growth scores come in maybe in September, it may be October, but I think we're all anxiously awaiting that because we think it's going to look really different than it has. So we really congratulated teachers on this and that in-service day, and really promoted the fact that we've made movement. So coming from that as a high, we're going to talk about a low. That's staff attendance. If you look in your notebooks, the sheet that has a lot of yellow highlights and the different colors, that is actually staff attendance data from last year. And it's broken down by teacher, other staff, by campus. And I'm not gonna go through all those, but this is the basis for why we felt like we needed to do something with staff attendance. We had the committee come together, they met 2 or 3 times, they brought back ideas, and this is what we came up with. Basically, we've got policies, and this only applies to 200 to 240 day contract staff. This would include teachers, instructional coaches, guidance counselors, those types of people. Because if you're on a 260, you get vacation days, and it puts a whole different thing into perspective. So this is 200 to 240 days. But basically what we're asking for is after someone has been out for 3 consecutive days, if they're out that 4th day, they provide us a doctor's note, or a principal has to approve it as a sick day. And our thinking behind that was a day or 2, you may have a sick child, you may not go to the doctor for a stomach bug, things like that. But if you've been out 3 and you're going on the 4th, there should be a reason for a doctor's note. Failure to do so will just result in documentation in the personnel file and making sure that we have that documentation in place. After 10 days, they must meet to develop an action plan to ensure that students receive proper instruction. If a teacher's going to be out for more than 5 days, or if a teacher has more than 10 absences in a year, there needs to be a pretty solid backup plan, because there's a sub being utilized too much. And then at the bottom, we're just reminding teachers that fraudulent or abusive use of leave will subject an employee to disciplinary action up to and including termination. And I promise you, I had Deborah Owen vet this very carefully. So that's what we sent out to staff, trying to increase staff attendance and make sure our students are receiving good quality instruction. Cell phones, we were starting to have problems with that again toward the end of the year with students and with staff. We just reminded everyone that cell phones are not allowed to be out, including the adults.
One question I have about the attendance again, what do you feel like the percentage of teachers in our system are the problem? I mean, whoever wants to answer that.
I would say 20.
20% of our teachers are
Or
major abusers of the.
Mr. Rutherford having one of the largest campuses, he can probably
Probably a bit higher than that.
higher than that. It's a real problem.
Yeah, I think we discussed it in our budget committee, and it cost us somewhere in the neighborhood of over $300,000 for substitute teachers. And not only to mention, when a student misses, they only miss 1 day. When a student misses, that whole class misses instruction for 1 day, so it's very important.
I know we've tried all kinds of things, gift cards and special things, and it doesn't seem to have helped at all.
So this doesn't have a lot of teeth to it, but at least it's a reminder, and it gives us some documentation. I did it where I know we had one that had about 48 days. and that's an EOC course. So it's not good quality education for students. So this just puts some steps in place to help ensure if someone does go over that 10 days, they're gonna probably have more, that we have a plan in place to make sure instruction's happening.
I just think we need to somehow still also include some reward for our teachers that don't abuse it, because, I mean, I know you got a lot of teachers that never miss a day. And, you know, and I think they need to be recognized in some form or fashion. Because if you promote what you want, it's sometimes it'll rub off on other people, sometimes it won't. But, you know, I mean, I don't know how to do that, but I think they should be rewarded for something.
We have money in the budget, honestly, with all the Lisa's been going through, we just didn't have time to get a plan together to bring. We did put, I believe it's 15,000 in the budget for something like that. But we've got to find the time to sit down and figure out what are the parameters, what does this look like. The committees gave us some ideas. They didn't really have a budget in mind when they talked about some of them, but we can come up with something. Any other questions on the attendance piece? We have reminded teachers about making sure that those exterior doors are locked, because safety is a priority. SROs are going to play a role in making sure doors are shut and checking them constantly throughout the day. If we find a door unlocked and we have evidence of who did it and how it got left open, it will be documented in their personnel file. This is something we can't just expect them to do. We're gonna have to have some consequences for not doing it. One of the things we spent a lot of time this summer talking about was code of conduct for each school. Each school was required to write a code of conduct. They all spent some time together saying, what would this look like in a K-8 building? Then high school and middle school looked at what would this look like in our buildings, to try to bring some consistency along with firm and fair consequences for codes of conduct. So we've looked at some things a little differently. I know the high schools are going to approach fighting very differently than they have in the past. But I just wanted you guys to know we are taking that discipline piece and the code of conduct very seriously and trying to make sure everybody's on the same page and something is in place. The next thing to update you on are positions and personnel. This is in your packets, but I want to point out a couple of things. I keep hearing we've had more people leave than we ever have in the past. That is absolutely not true. The year I began teaching, there were 82 teachers, not assistants, teachers only hired. And this year we had 70 total, and that included 9 new assistant positions at one at each school. A new advanced manufacturing and mechatronics at Central, a new teacher at, hopefully, at Whiteville Elementary. Her numbers were so high, she's gonna have to look for a new teacher. They're flocking over there. Culinary arts at Middleton High School, criminal justice at Central, an instructional coach at Middleton High School. They did not have one, and our district STEM coordinator. 1, 2, 3. 4 of those are funded out of, 4 of those are funded out of grants. We also attrited 6 teacher positions because of enrollment numbers going down. Of our teachers, you see the number of 30 new hires. Of those 30, 12 were teacher retirees, and then we had 3 assistant retirees. So 70 looks bad, but if you really start looking at what's in there, it's not as bad as it seems. We had 9 terminations or non-retires. So that's the personnel update. Questions on that?
Before you get to your next slide, can I ask a question about the safety issue? I know about the doors have to be locked, but we've got a lot of glass fronts in our buildings. None of our buildings, that glass is bulletproof.
Right.
Is
It is not. They use the word bullet resistant. I got my hand slapped over. Nothing's bulletproof. is
Oh,
what they
nothing
told
but
me.
approved, okay.
Okay.
This is-
Okay. What we're doing is we have a window and door project at Bolivar Elementary that we had going prior to July first. The initial, or the plan was to put bullet resistant film. They make bullet resistant glass and then they make bullet resistant film. I don't know what the glass costs, but I've heard it's double the film, and I'll tell you how much the film costs in a minute. The plan was to put it on all entrances. So they were kinda going back and forth about the law, and I'm like, I had everything I needed in prior to July first. So we went back and I said, hey, if it's doable, let's do it. Price me the film, just for Bolivar Elementary, if y'all can follow with me in your imaginations here, the front of the ABC building, just the side that goes down by the cafeteria, the one up by the street on the bus ramp, and over to the office, not even on down the hill. Just for the film, now we're already buying the windows, just to add the film to it was over $125,000. So what we're looking at to start with is the resistant film on all the glass entrances at each building. Here's the problem with the film. So the contractor tells me, once we put the new windows in and we install the film voids the warranty of the windows.
Oh my goodness.
It just doesn't get any better than this, does it? So that's where we are on bullet resistant film. But we are planning on putting it on the front, on the entrance doors, the main entrances, to start. Now, anything we do, and this is going to really, this throws a complete curveball in our capital improvement project plans. Anything we do past that Bolivar Elementary phase, if we do any type of reconstruction, remodeling, new construction, or anything, every window and door in it has to have bullet resistant film on it. So our cost of anything that we had planned to do just tripled. So we've got to go back to the drawing board on all that and see where we can go.
Well, isn't our legislator having a special,
They are, that was
and
just
more
announced
things
yesterday.
may come out of it from that.
I can tell you that when I expressed my concern about what our architect was telling me compared to what our attorney was telling me, I went to Chuck Cable. And I saw that Chuck passed it way on up. So this may make it into that session. It's the fact that it contradicts itself. So there's probably a little more to come on that, but that's where we are at the moment.
I've got one last thing. Wyville Elementary, the connection.
It still doesn't have a French drain. It better have.
That have what, the French drain?
They're supposed to go out and dig up all around that sidewalk and fill it in with gravel and put a pipe over it and then put rocks on top of it. So that the water would drain into that and not go in it.
Okay.
The problem was the rain at one time.
Okay. Well, I don't know how you fix it. I just don't like the fact that water comes under that thing. And, sometimes kids have to walk through water going, but I don't know. I think we can fix that.
That is supposed to have already been done,
Okay.
but I was
Well,
told,
maybe it has.
I was told that the rain, it has to be dry for them to dig that trench.
Okay.
So, but I will check on that when we leave.
Still raining under.
Yes, sir.
I may be digging a ditch tomorrow, but we were gonna dig a ditch, so.
Yeah. I don't know, and I think they did dig that drainage thing back there, but I'm saying, when it rains, the water right there immediately that's near the building comes
They
under.
were gonna have to do two things. One, they had to dig an actual drain, like a big drain, and then they had to go back and put that little trench.
Yeah,
I think they got one, I don't know that they didn't get the other one.
Yeah.
But I'll find out.
but you know, I compliment you, cause we begged for years for that, and didn't get nothing.
We're
You
just trying to
were
get it
trying
right.
to get it, but still, I mean, it needs to be gotten better.
We'll get it right.
Or
Okay.
either enclose that completely so water can't get on, so they'll have a safe way to walk from
The
one building
course, then we have problems with the connector at Bolivar Elementary that is enclosed because it sweats. And it's still wet. We'll work on
Okay,
that. I'll
yes,
see what
ma'am,
I
yes, ma'am.
can do. One change that we kinda made when, the HR position became open and Ms. Knuckles moved into that, she's with us tonight, getting a dose of what it's like to be here on a board meeting night. HR was critical to me in terms of, especially from like April to about the August or September, because so many things were changing and so many things had to be done. That's going to move, and Lisa and them needed some help in their area, so we're gonna move some things around and make that an accounting position and then pull HR back under me, so that's a change in that, and, I will send this actual org chart out to you with this changes. We need bus drivers. Mr. Chris has done a great job recruiting some that are actually in the permit phase. Hopefully they'll come out soon, but we're still going to need some more, and we're hoping to have this routing software finished and new routes out by fall break for sure. That may be the best time to transition, but that's been a slower process than we were hoping it would be, but
Have we thought of a signing bonus for bus drivers?
we
They're
have
so
not.
critical.
What we have done, I believe Dr. Wood may have to help me. Mr. Chris now can help them get a little farther down the road in their training.
The district is now, registered with the training provider registry, so, Mr. Crispin and his team at the bus garage, they're able to provide the training. It's basically, we do the same thing that we used to do in the past. Basically, take a CDL book, study the CDL book, go take the 4 written tests. After you've taken the written test to get the permit, then that's where we have to implement a new process, entry level driver training, and I think that's what we talked about before, when we thought that it would cost $5,000 to $6,000 for an individual to become a bus driver. Now, we're trained, we have a process, that a candidate can go through, to get the ELDT requirement. Once they finish the ELDT requirement, then they can move to the behind the wheel training with Mr. Crisp and his team at the bus garage, learning all about the bus, getting on the road, actually driving before they go to actually complete the driving test with a certified driver. So we actually have a process in place now. In the past, we didn't, and I think last year this time we were thinking that it would cost $5,000 or $6,000 for someone like me who doesn't have anything to become a bus driver, but we have a process in place, and no, it doesn't cost $5,000. And as I have been saying, if you know someone who wants to become a bus driver, please send them our way. We can get them trained. And if it's someone with a CDL, like a Class A, it's easier for them because it's just the passenger and the school bus that they'll have to add to become an actual bus driver.
But we have put that on social media. They did some great jobs with their graphics. We have submitted the paperwork for our 2023-24 Board of Distinction and received our 2024 plaque piece for that. And here are some pictures of the capital improvement projects. If you remember what Bolivar Elementary floors look like, that is Bolivar Elementary.
Wow. That's really nice.
So that's it's a total transformation of the interior of that school.
Is it the main campus, or the main building?
Both.
Or
It is both, isn't it? It's supposed to be. I haven't been to the ABC building.
I think so.
And they were there till the last minute. It was a little stressful, but looks so much better. Middleton High School got some landscaping, out in front of the old gym. It was literally rocks and black plastic, so this is a huge improvement. That campus got pressure washed, so did Whiteville. Whiteville looks so much better than it did. Middleton Elementary, and I believe Bolivar Middle is as far as they've made it, but they've done a lot of pressure washing, made things look a lot better. Middleton Elementary on the top left got some new flooring and paint in their library. The Learning Center, we added, I believe it's 27 additional parking spots there so that we can also use that as a training center. Before we only had maybe, I think it was 22 parking spots. So this gives us about 50 parking spots, which is about what the other side of that building could hold. So now we have another area to offer training. And at the bottom, this one probably is one of the ones that has made the most impact. That is the awning at Bolivar Middle with that pressure washed.
Wow.
It looks a lot better with some, they've actually done some landscaping out there as well. So the capital improvement projects are looking good, and some of the bigger projects are taking shape. Hope Street, we're still talking about it. When the city gave us that building for $1, we should have asked questions. So since then,
Careful, because most of us are still on that forward end.
it is going to be a wonderful addition to our campuses if it doesn't kill me first. The major thing was we could not find plans. And in order to change from a business license to an education license, we had to have plans. That took a long time. In order to integrate it into education, we had to have a fire sprinkler system. All that is done. Plans are in, they've been done, it's been approved by the fire marshal, sprinkler system's in. We are down to waiting on flooring, paint, and cabinet replacement. And windows and doors. Windows and doors seems to be what gets us on everywhere we turn around. Supposedly the windows and doors are still 4 to 6 weeks out, and they're telling us it will be fall break before we're in. So I was told April, then August, and now we're at fall break. So we're just crossing our fingers. But it is on budget. We're getting almost everything that needed to be done, and it is going to be a very valuable addition to our campuses. This past Monday, I had the honor of speaking at a town hall meeting in Bolivar. It's for the whole county with Casey Swift and Representative Shaw, and got to speak on some of the great things that we're doing in our school system. And every time I get a chance to go to things like that and spread the word, I go, and seem to have a lot of community support, and that means a lot.
Dr. Smith?
Yes.
Is there anything going on at Grand Junction, gymnasium?
Yes, we have put that on the list to get bid out. We can't do that, it'll have to be bid. And it's gonna be way over 25,000, so it's gotta go through the process, but we know it's up there on the list. Anytime you get a chance to remind our students, parents, and employees about the Hardeman County Community Health Center School Health Clinic located at Bolivar Elementary, that's somewhere they can use, and it's usually a lot easier to get in there than it is anywhere else, so we need to utilize that so we have it available. UT has also come out with some opportunities. If you know people, actually encourage teachers to go back and either get their endorsement in special education, and now they're offering it for math, either 6-8 or 6-12 math endorsements. Basically, they can do this for free. It's called UT Plays. Principals have this information, we'll have this information, and teachers can sign up and do this, and I don't think it takes very long at all. Does it? Do you know the specifics on that one?
Most of them they finish in less than a year.
Yeah, so a good way to add additional endorsements, because math teachers, you can go anywhere you wanna go. Future Ready, we are having that 9th grade required class again at both high schools that focuses on study skills, responsibility, conflict resolution, social emotional, things like that. And then that second one called Career Ready focuses on ethics, ACT, safety, a lot of career exploration and things like that for kids that still aren't exactly sure what they want to do. Gives them some guidance and direction. And we were actually recognized, it wasn't at a conference, it was on a nationwide Zoom for these two classes by the National Ed Association and the U.S. Department of Education. So that's showing some promise and showing that we're doing something different. Innovative Schools model began on July 1st, and we're starting to do a lot of things with it. Our main focus on it is professional development. Our people can't be what they can't see, and we want them to get out and see different things, get professional development, make connections with other educators so that we can do things that others are doing as well. And I'm just gonna leave this up there because that's how this week has been. So that brings us to the last part of our agenda, which is public comment.
Thank you, Dr. Smith, and I'd like to thank everyone for being here tonight. And is there anyone in the audience that would like to make any comment pertaining to tonight's meeting? Not hearing any, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Ross, seconded by Mr. Atkins. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion